Luz, thank you so much for making the time to come into Two People Talking. I'm really, really excited to learn from you and to share your story and all the knowledge you have that you are currently sharing with so many other women and men as well. So to start, can you please introduce yourself?
Of course. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited, and I was looking forward to this conversation. So thank you for having me. And to introduce myself, I'm Luz. I'm a breast cancer survivor. I had breast cancer when I was 31. I'm 33 now, so it's been 2 years. I'm currently on remission. And I'm the deputy director of Cinema Akil in Al Circal Avenue. So that's my professional side.
Luz, I really wanted to talk to you about life after cancer. I mean, there are some elements that are very important, obviously, during the actual experience and all of that. And I feel like there is this topic that no one talks about, that what really happens after you're diagnosed or after the treatment phase. And I want to learn from you about what was your experience like once you finalized and completed your program or the treatment program.
So I completed my treatment I completed my chemo last year in March. So just to fill in some blanks, I had a mastectomy of my right breast and immediate reconstruction. That was in September 2018. I started chemotherapy in October all the way until March. So I had 18 sessions for 6 months. And I continued immunotherapy for another almost year. So I finished immunotherapy February this year. And I had my port removed in May, which is like my catheter.
Yeah.
And that was my last kind of active treatment surgery that I did this year. So in reality, my cancer treatment ended very recently. I mean, obviously a lot of people think that chemotherapy ends your treatment. It doesn't. It ends the hardest part of your treatment. But immunotherapy still means that you have to go every 3 weeks to the hospital, and you have to, obviously your mindset is still in I'm an active patient.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until May this year, through quarantine and coronavirus, that I felt that my treatment finally stopped. So it wasn't until then that I kind of realized everything that I went through and everything that happened. I mean, I think it's a very important topic that you decided to discuss, because I think that a lot of people give a lot of attention, which obviously it should be that way, on the patient while you're going through cancer treatment. But the reality also is that after treatment stops, everything. Meet my cat.
Good cat.
Yeah, she likes to be a part of my talks.
We don't mind. We love animals.
So after treatment ends is when a lot of the emotional and mental and psychological issues come to the surface, and also your body, right? So your body takes time to also recover after a harsh session of a long term of chemotherapy. I mean, chemotherapy can be really, really difficult, and for me, it really was. It was a really tough treatment for me to go through.
I feel like it's very important because, like, when people have someone around them, or a family or loved one that it goes through cancer, it's like the pressure is not just on the patient, it's about the people around them as well. And that's why I wanted to really talk about this, like how can the patient himself or herself really care for their mental health, but also the mental health of people around them, and how they can be supportive. And I think this is a very important thing. My personal experience with this has been really interesting, because I've never ever thought that I will be so affected. Besides the fact that, one of my good friends passed away from cancer, from breast cancer, and she was 28. Beside the fact that that was by itself a shocking experience, but after that happened, it was so hard for me to even engage with her family, to even go to her family home and everything. It was so hard for me, even as a friend. So I always feel like there's this area of an untalked element when it comes to mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm first of all, I'm really sorry to hear about your loss. I know that it's very, very difficult to also be a caretaker for a cancer patient, and particularly when it comes to loss. So it's not easy to lose somebody to cancer, and of course
Yeah.
it's a very difficult illness to manage for the patient and for everyone around them.
Yeah.
In my case, when it comes to my support system, uh, at the beginning, because my family was not here, my parents were not here when I was getting treated, and my no one from my family was here
Yeah.
at the time. My brother flew in for my surgery. I really relied heavily on a lot of the friendships that luckily I have built over my nearly 20 years in the UAE. And there is look, at the beginning, as a patient, you feel like a burden in a way, because you feel like, why am I, like, how am I putting my family through all of this, and how am I putting my friends through all of this, and they're taking so much time out of their lives to come with me to appointments, to be there for me when I'm feeling really ill. I had two very, very bad episodes of when I stayed in the hospital for a very long time, and they all made an effort to make a schedule and never leave me alone. And it was such a beautiful show of affection, and at the same time I felt somewhat guilty about it. I
Yeah.
did feel like, wow, I'm putting them through so much, and I could see after that, probably after my treatment, they had to also deal with a lot of that draining emotion of being there for me and being worried about someone that you love so much and that you care about. I had to deal with also at some point, I don't know if I want to call it the guilt, but the thought of my mom being so concerned about me being all the way in another country and not being able to come and see me. And so you also, as a patient, you're experiencing your own pain and your own emotions, but you're also making sure that everybody else is managing, because we are focused during treatment on fighting on what is going to happen. On cancer is the type of illness that is kind of like, you're still figuring it out. Like, your doctors, you have to trust your doctors blindly. Do I need to do chemo? Fine. What does that mean? You need to
Yeah.
figure it out. So
Yeah.
after every chemo session, a little surprise comes, and the side effects can be really, really harsh and difficult.
Yeah.
The losing of the hair is the least painful physically, I mean. Emotionally, that's a different question, but physically, you go through nausea, you can't eat,
Yeah.
you feel horrible, you get it's so many things I can't even explain. And your friends are seeing you that way, and obviously they're looking at you and they wish they could take that pain away, and that also is heavy on the heart.
Yeah.
So it's a learning experience, I think, for everyone involved. And I always say that it's such a courageous thing to be by the side of a cancer patient,
Yeah.
because I don't think people realize how much their affection and their words and their actions mean to somebody that is in those circumstances, like it did for me. I'm so grateful to so many people that showed me concern and care and affection from so many different places. And
Mm.
that worried, it's always lovely to think that way, but it does take a toll
Yeah.
mentally on everyone.
I feel like from your experience, because I've seen like like different examples of cases. Like I know people who didn't want to engage with anyone; they wanted to be left alone to go and figure things. And some people wanted the attention and everything. But from your perspective, what do you think a survivor wants or needs post cancer?
It's a really difficult question. I can only answer for myself in my own experience, because people really do require very different things depending on how they're coping with their own illness. In my case, during treatment, I was at the beginning, I was very, very silent. Like I didn't really want everyone to know. All of a sudden, I had a complication that changed everything, and then I decided I can help people, and I can actually put like maybe some awareness and help other women, because a lot of the women around me did not expect this to happen to me. I was very young.
Yeah.
I mean, I am very young still, but like at the time, it didn't even occur to me that I could have cancer at 30. So that you put that, and after cancer, when everything kind of stopped, and also you have to consider that I stopped treatment also during the quietest time of our current lives, which is during lockdown.
Yeah.
So my surgery basically just when lockdown started to ease for medical emergencies and other things. That time by myself allowed me to really be faced with the reality of what had happened and what I went through. Because right after I finished chemo, my focus went into rebuilding my body. After I finished chemo, particularly my bones were really weak. I had lost all muscle. I was thinner. I felt tired, and I really wanted to rebuild my stamina and my strength. So the gym became my focus. Seeing my friends and doing all the things that I couldn't do for like a year became it became a priority. So in that, I distracted myself from really understanding what had happened.
Yeah.
And then when everything slowed down, I started to realize that I needed time to process, and I needed it on my own as well. I did have company, of course. I mean, my best friend was incredible through this, and he helped me so much. A lot of my friends helped me so much, even through the unraveling of my feelings after treatment. But it was a moment that I realized that, you know what, this is actually bigger than me. And I am I consider myself a person with introspection. I have the ability to kind of find ways to unravel my feelings through journaling and through meditation. And I'm that person that I will try different methods and different things. But this time I realized that I needed something else, and that's when I turned to a psychotherapist, to a specialist, and I decided that if I really wanted to get past the traumatic experience that I had lived, also because in the same year that I had cancer, I got divorced and I lost my dad.
Yeah.
So it was so many things that I didn't, and I realized, for example, one of the things that came up is that because my father's illness was basically at the same time as mine, and he deteriorated while I was just getting out of chemo. I never really processed his loss.
Yeah.
And I had to do that now.
Yeah. The thing is, I see COVID-19 as a problem, but it was also a blessing. Like, I know myself from experiences when my father passed away. For the first 3 years, I don't think I've digested it. And this is in normal situations. So imagine with you going through a lot of other things, a divorce and a treatment and recovery, and your dad, and not being in the same country as well, and all of that must be really, really difficult. And I'm so proud of you, seriously, Luz, because you took a negative situation, a very tough negative situation, you turn it into a positive thing in terms of creating awareness, engaging with people, and not shying away about talking about conversations of going to therapy and talking to different people, learning new techniques, things that people assume, like Generation Z or millennials should know, and I think for this, you should really be proud that you really took a negative situation and turned it into positive. And I think it's very important to let people know that the people around us play a major role in recovery, major role in post-cancer, because a lot of people think, okay, now everything is fine, she or he is safe. And then, I know people who felt very lonely after all the attention and support, and then suddenly they're very lonely and they were not ready to be alone. They still needed help.
That happened to me. I mean, I discussed this with you very briefly earlier, and I mentioned that there is also another thing that happens after cancer treatment, is that you realize that nobody really understands what you went through, because obviously these are things that you relate through from experience. As a cancer patient also, what I did was that I also created a little network of other survivors that really helped me. It was such a beautiful thing to find somebody that would be like, oh my God, me too. When I was telling
Yeah.
them about, I don't know, on my third chemo session, I felt this. And did you feel that? Having somebody to like ask for reassurance or for advice or for anything was so important. So the cancer support groups that are out there are actually extremely important for those moments when everything stops. And like I told you, right, for me, I went super public with my cancer, with my blog, and I was very candid and very honest, and I tried to really try. I really tried to give a very accurate experience of what it was in its reality and its ugliness and its pain as well.
Yeah.
And I received a lot of love from a lot of people, and I'm very grateful for that. But obviously, once chemo stops, and your hair grows and you look fine, so everybody's like, oh my God, you're fine, it's amazing. And then all of that attention does withdraw, which is completely normal. There is in no way do I blame anybody for not, I mean, you can't
Yeah.
continuously be there for someone, but at the same time, you also need to start dealing with that kind of withdrawal symptoms. It's like, oh my God, I'm alone. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to cope. How do I do this? How do I process everything? And
Yeah.
because everybody was there for you at the time that you were really sick, you don't want to pick up the phone, a
Yeah.
year later and be like, I'm still sad about that thing that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
You feel so guilty. And this is the thing, you have to work through those feelings in a way by yourself, but also in my case, I try not to withdraw too much. It was I did withdraw, and I found solace in journaling and maybe in a couple of people, but I felt honestly like I couldn't. I felt like a broken record almost. Like my friends, all they knew about me for like almost 2 years was cancer, and then I'm gonna come back, and again, third year I'm gonna be like, oh, but cancer, like, they're gonna tell me, you need to stop thinking about it, or you need to break up with the illness. And it's like,
Mhm.
I know I really want to, but you don't realize what I went through. So
Yeah.
it's not an easy process to do that.
Yeah, I think, one of the things I also like about your blog, because this is how I got to know you, and, from the blog itself and everything. And I was like, wow. And I remember when you did the photo shoot and everything, and I saw the images and everything. For me personally, I looked at the images. The first impression was like, wow, these are very powerful images. But what really, made it very powerful, I felt you were like, and you still are a badass. You're a badass. Like, you really face such a like, people underestimate what this does to you, and how it can really, really put you down and gives you trauma and all of that. But you really showed people that even, I love the fact that you went out there proudly with no hair, saying that this is me and I'm proud of myself. This is, I'm celebrating myself. A lot of people might, judge and say, oh wow, why she's going out publicly, too public, maybe close people, because this happens, in situations. But I felt like that was a very powerful move, not just for you personally, but for all those people who are still going through these experiences. And, it also shows me your character. It tells me a lot about your personality. And I know I've just learned today that you were still working while you're going through treatment. And I want to know more about, how did you go back to work once you knew that you are done with at least the big part of the treatment? And how was that for you, going back fully knowing? How was the reaction of colleagues, clients? I'm just curious.
Okay. The first thing that I'm going to say, back to your point about the photo shoot and about me going out without a wig and everything, I have to give a lot of credit to my best friend from high school. Angelica was the photographer of a lot of the photos that you saw, and she was the person that really, really pushed my self-confidence to another level. And she was the person who actually, we were celebrating my birthday out one night, and I was wearing a scarf. I wasn't wearing my wig because it was a bit warm. And eventually, it got hot as well. And then she just looked at me, and then she's like, remove it. Just remove it. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
you're so comfortable without it in our presence. Just, we're all here. Like, this is a
Yeah.
safe space. So she really reminded me of who I was in spite of my physical appearance. Let me put it that way. So I really thank her for that, and it's something that I will always be very grateful for her to do that. And then on the other side, I never really stopped working. So what happened to me was, I was diagnosed, unfortunately, also at a really critical time at work. I work for Cinema Akil, and we were an independent nomadic cinema. So at the time, we were in 2018, we were building our first space, and the space was set to open on September 28th. And my surgery for my mastectomy, I got diagnosed in July for starters, so it was during a really critical time and very, very busy time, and I worked through it. And actually, it was a way for me to not focus entirely on the diagnosis and everything. And my colleagues and the owner of the cinema and everyone was so supportive. They were wonderful, really, really wonderful. So I felt like, okay, I have a good base, and I can continue doing what I'm doing while still trying to pursue my treatment. And at the time, I didn't really know what my treatment was going to be. But I did my surgery on the 25th of September, which was like 3 days before the cinema opened. I was in the hospital for a night, and then I came home. And on this, I went to the cinema on the 29th. Actually, I visited it because it was such an important milestone for us, and we had worked the 3 years prior just to see the cinema open, and it was a very important thing for me. My brother was like, "Oh my God, you can't leave the house," because I still had obviously I couldn't move my arm, and I still had drains coming out of my wounds, and I packed everything into a little bag, and one of my best friends took me for literally 40 minutes. Everybody was really worried about anybody bumping into me or that sort of thing. But it was lovely. I was very happy to see the space like built in all its glory, and since then I took 3 weeks off to recover from the surgery, and then I came back. They wanted me to take more time off, and I was like, I can't. I'm going crazy. I didn't know what to do with myself. I needed distractions, and because I knew I had to start chemo, and we had a very honest conversation, and it was like, let me see how I feel. Depending on how I feel, we will work around it. And there were times in the hospital. I spent 15 days in the hospital because of a complication. And I turned my hospital room into a little office. My doctor used to find it quite funny when I would be sitting on my desk. But I'm the type of person that I need to be busy. I have met other fellow survivors that they found that the best thing for them was to do the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And it was to withdraw from any public appearance, to withdraw into themselves, and that's completely fine. I think everybody needs to deal and cope in their own way. For me, because I'm a very hyperactive person, I like to stay busy. The busier, the better for me. So it was a way for me to heal, actually, to really busy. It was a way for me to be like, okay, I have a purpose. I needed to feel like I have a purpose, and that made me more. It made me more fierce, if you will, on the side effects and on the days that I was feeling bad. But of course, there were many days that I couldn't, particularly towards the end of chemo. There were many days when I had literally like enough energy to go to the bathroom and back. There was nothing else. So everybody has their own ways of coping. In my case, I was very grateful that I had the flexibility of a job that allowed me to work in and out however I kind of designed my schedule, if you will. And at the same time that my colleagues were supportive enough to pick up whenever I couldn't deliver because I was not feeling well. So that was a gift for me. It was really a gift.
To be honest, like I have to give credit to an amazing leader you have at Cinema Aqli, Buthaina Kadhim, and the rest of the team for not only supporting you, but like standing by you through this tough time. Like, honestly, you don't find a lot of employers that, stays there with their employees, especially when they go through cancer. I personally know of people have lost their jobs during cancer, treatment. People couldn't go to work. They had no flexibility. So any company, any business, any entity that provides that kind of flexibility really deserves huge respect, because that's not an easy thing, but it shows leadership from these entities. And I, as a business owner of multiple businesses, I feel like my fellow entrepreneurs and CEOs and leaders should really think about this very seriously, because you're very talented, Liz. You're very talented, hardworking. You were committed to your job even through hard time. And I think, companies need to start like considering how they react in situations like that, because as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of people who lose their jobs during cancer experience or journey, and there's a lot of mandate and responsibility on us as business leaders of doing the right thing. And I think you were very fortunate to be in that situation, honestly. That's
Yes.
an I'm glad you experienced that. I'm glad you had a positive experience, and I think it's very important message you sent out there, that sometimes companies might fear away from like hiring people with past cancer experience and everything, and it costs them more money and everything. But it shouldn't be about that, because we need, as business leaders, to reintegrate our talents again, regardless of their health issues, and not keep that as an obstacle. And I'm sure in the art and culture sector you see this as well a lot, because it has a better flexibility than financial and other sectors and all of that.
Yeah, it's also there is a humanity and a human closeness to a lot of what we do. I mean, I was grateful because I was in a field that I loved. I was doing something that I truly believe in, and I am still doing it. I mean, and it is the fact that when you find such support, it also makes you a better, not only a better person, but you deliver work. I mean, you feel like, okay, they care, I care, so it becomes an equal relationship. And
Yeah.
it's not like when somebody gets fired, for example, for having cancer and everything else, they have to deal on top of everything else, on perhaps a financial burden of the treatment,
Exactly.
perhaps also
Health insurance.
yeah, health insurance, and the lack of purpose as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like you do need, sometimes you need a light at the end of the tunnel. You need to feel like life is still worth living in a way. And for me, I have always kept busy. I have always defined a lot of myself through my work and through the things that I do. So for me, it was definitely important to keep that persona. And at the beginning, actually, back to the initial questions that you asked me as well, is that at the beginning I got a wig that was very similar to my hair, because I did not want, and this is why I didn't talk about my cancer initially for the first 6 months. It was because I did not want every conversation at work, because I had no intention to stop working. I
Yeah.
didn't want every conversation to be about my issue. I wanted to make sure that nobody was treating me differently, nobody was asking me too many questions that I didn't know how to answer, and nobody was pitying me either. So it was important for me to maintain the relationships as they were, because it made me feel stable, and like I had control over some things in my life. I always say that cancer is the one thing that makes you feel like you're losing control of everything.
Yeah.
And it's a humbling experience in that way, in the way that for people with controlling personalities like myself, and I'm very open and I admit that freely,
Yeah.
it makes you feel powerless, because you realize that you have no control over anything. So you try to hold on to whatever you can. In my case, that was with my hair and with my presentation. I wanted people to treat me normal, to not, I didn't want this to
Yeah.
become the main topic of conversation. Then when I started to discuss it publicly, and obviously everybody found out about it, and everybody was amazingly supportive, including everybody in Alsercal, my neighbors, or landlords. Like, everybody was truly, or clients, everybody was super supportive. And I did not feel how I expected to feel. I thought that I was going to be like, oh my god, everybody's thinking about me, like, oh, poor her,
Yeah.
how did this
That's the
happen?
worst. That's the
Yeah,
worst.
I want to be in that position. So I personally, like, I never took a victimizing stance on my cancer. Like, I never wanted to victimize myself through it. I never wanted to be like, oh, please feel sorry for me, like, this is horrible that is happening to me, even though it was a horrible situation. But all the opposite, I wanted to kind of overcome it. I wanted to be like, no, yes, this is happening, but I'm doing this other thing. I never wanted to be defined by it. And now with the talks that I'm doing, and the advocacy work that I'm doing, is I say that a lot. I say that, I am a survivor, and I am an advocate of breast cancer, but I do a lot of other things and I do them great. So I always try to put forth all the different sides of who I am. I'm not just
Yeah.
that. And this is important for us to reinforce in,
Yeah.
the closest people to us.
Yeah. I remember when I first started doing like campaigns and awareness campaigns for breast cancer and cervical cancer, because I used to do both. This is a very personal story. I've never ever shared it in public, but I feel like that was a ticking point for me when it comes to the work I have to do on a grassroots level, privately with women. Tradition and culture plays a major role in how we talk about cancer, and we talked about that briefly before. I remember I was actually organizing a breast cancer awareness event, a community event where public can come and attend, and we had caravans, where they teach women how to do self-examination, and at the same time free mammograms if you are above 40. And the event was about to open at 4 p.m., but I was there on site at 2 p.m. So I had plenty of time to look around and everything. I said, you know what? I've never actually went through these caravans. So I'm going to go and learn how to do self-examination. I knew how to do it, but I didn't know if I was doing it right. So I thought, yeah, I want to go and do this. So I go, and the event's still not officially inaugurated. So I go there, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. I'm just going to learn before people come. I was doing it in hiding, almost in hiding. And the woman was teaching me how to actually examine myself and everything. And then she was touching me and everything. And then she told me, I don't feel good about this. I think you need to go and do something. I need to give you a paper. And I thought she was joking, because I thought because I'm the organizer, she's, trying to, and she was serious. She said, I feel like I feel something in your breast and I need you to go and get it checked, because we don't have the right paperwork here. And I said, okay, sure. So she gave me the paper, and I would never forget, I was so nervous. I was like, my heart almost fell to the floor. And this is just me thinking, I'm here organizing a breast cancer awareness event, and I might have it. It was really shocking for me. And I remember then going to the hospital, like after the event. I don't know how I pulled my face and I kept myself together throughout the event. I was so nervous. The next day I go see a doctor, and she said, we'll do, ultrasound type scanning and all of that. And she noticed like there are a couple of things, and she said, you need a mammogram. So I wanted to do a mammogram, and most of the places actually didn't want to give me a mammogram because I was under 30 at that time. I was under 30, and they were saying, oh, you're not 40, you don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need it. It took me a while to find the right place. I have to say it was disappointing. And I even thought about writing article about it, because I said, how can this experience be like this? If I'm stressed, appointments are not available. Like, I was really nervous. And thank God, like, I reached to a point where I figured out that I had things, but they were not canceric, like they were not, bad, and it didn't require proper surgery or anything like that. But it made me realize that I had just trauma. This trauma scares, excuse my language, scares the shit out of me until today. The whole experience, because how did I figure that out? I was alone. I didn't tell anyone. I kept it to myself. I can see a lot of even Emirati women go through that, and women in general. And I want to encourage women not to shy away, and also to not go into conclusion, because sometimes it doesn't end up like badly, as they say. You know what I mean? You don't have to go, but the most important thing is that you still learn how to check yourself and not to shy away about touching yourself, because culturally that's a very sensitive topic. And I don't know, like I changed my whole approach to awareness since this incident, and after my friend's passing as well. Is I felt that breast cancer topic should not be limited to women, first of all. Second of all, we should be discussing this beyond October. And I stopped collaborating with partners who commercialize Breast Cancer Awareness Month and focused on more grassroots. And I felt that was a change. I also was very happy that we're having this discussion after October. So
Yeah, me is the same.
Yeah.
I get you. I get you. I had an issue with so initially I had an issue with October, in the sense that it's awareness is so important, and I think that anything that creates awareness is super important. But I think there needs to be a point as well. There needs to be a real point to what you're doing, and I think that's the same. That's the case with every cause that you take on, and a lot of companies obviously just kind of slap pink on and then move on with their lives, and you can't do that. I feel like it's important to really. There are organizations here that really help women to, for example, get a mammogram, get directed to the right places. As a woman, a lot of women, whenever they feel something on their breast, myself included, by the way, go straight to, like, for example, a gynecologist.
Yeah.
It's not the right thing to do. Whenever you feel something on your breast, the gynecologist will refer you to somebody else because it's not really their area of expertise.
Yeah.
So it's important to know that whenever you have a doubt, if you feel something on your breast, it's important to go to a breast clinic. In Dubai, there are a couple of hospitals that have specialized breast clinics, including Dubai Hospital, including Mediclinic City Hospital, the American Hospital as well.
Cleveland Clinic in Abu Dhabi as well. We have a breast clinic.
Yeah, there you go. So then you should go to a surgeon that is specialized in breasts. This is when you can get properly diagnosed. And in your case, for example, it is important to also go to a doctor that will give you an order to do a mammogram. Because once you have an order from a doctor, they have nothing to say. I mean, that's it. They have to give it to you. So it's not a choice. For me, mammogram, the reason why mammogram is not advised under women below the age of 40. And by the way, I'm not a doctor. This is just stuff that you learn through your journey. So obviously always check with your doctor. But I do know that, and this happened to me, is that our breasts under 40 are very dense.
Yeah.
So what happens is that sometimes ultrasounds can catch something, but then a mammogram will help see it better, and then an MRI I had to do all three of them.
Yeah.
My tumor was large, and they didn't know if or how it was spreading, and they didn't actually know that my cancer was spreading through my breast until I did my surgery. So even all of this imaging work can also be like, doctors also can be surprised by when
clear sometimes.
because it's dense and it's dark, and I have I kept my left breast for personal reasons of time and choices you make during an overwhelming time. And my natural left breast has cysts. I have 3 cysts. And because of this, I still, obviously, and because I had breast cancer on my right breast, I have to do scannings every 3 months for the next 2 years. And then after that, I have to do it every 6 months. And then after that, I have to do it annually. So for now, they check me every 3 to 6 months, make sure that everything is okay. And mammogram, as you obviously may know, is a very, very uncomfortable and painful experience. It is not a fun process.
No.
Going through all of the diagnostics for me was actually really, really tough. It was draining me emotionally because, like you said, you have to, obviously, it's easy to say, don't expect the worst.
Yeah.
Something that your logical mind is going to tell you to do, right? It's going to tell you, like, don't expect the worst. You don't know what's going to happen. But the reality is that when you're faced with something that is abnormal, or particularly on the breast, because on the breast, you know that the answer is nothing or breast cancer. It's almost like that.
Yeah. True.
It's very easy to panic and very normal to panic. But also, I needed to, in the way that I handled that was that I needed to pull back, and I needed to remember that I should not go to these things alone. This was important. I went to, I'll tell you an experience that I don't think I've spoken about in any of my talks or interviews, is that it was already I already knew that I had breast cancer, but I went for a second opinion on treatment to the Dubai hospital, because the Dubai hospital also have a specialized breast clinic, and there is an excellent care for cancer care. And I went alone, and I sat in the doctor's office, and you start, there is also a psychological aspect of desexualizing your breast by taking off your top wherever you go, and feeling comfortable, and the fact that here also they make it a little awkward. So you're just like,
tell me about it. I've heard stories.
It's a situation. So I was there, and the doctor did an ultrasound for me and everything, and then he stepped out. And I don't know what, I felt so overwhelmed that I started crying.
Yeah.
Just started crying and I couldn't stop. The nurse was just looking at me, and I remember she put her hand on my leg because she was on the other side of the bed, and she put her hand on my leg and she was like, "It's gonna be okay." And I was just looking at her, and I don't think I was even listening. I
Yeah.
was just overwhelmed by the process of getting touched and prodded and this and that, and not knowing what was going to happen. So diagnosis is a very taxing process on the mind, on until they didn't tell me. So for me, because as I said, I'm a controlling person, the moment that I didn't have a plan of treatment, I felt overwhelmed every second, because I felt like I had a problem and I didn't know how to solve it, and nobody was
Yeah.
telling me how to solve it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I had a treatment plan, which might be ironic for some people, because you think, oh my God, they tell you chemo and you're going to feel worse. But for me, it was the opposite, because I was like, okay, that's what I need to do. Fine, let's just do it. Like, that
Yeah.
was my kind of take on it. And as I went through the complications that I went through, because unfortunately my body did not take very well to the chemo, and I had very low white blood cells and red
Yeah.
blood cells almost throughout the end of my chemo. I had to just cope with the again, that feeling of, oh my God, what if something else goes wrong, and what am I going to do, how am I going to cope? So everyone else around me, just the importance of going with other people to these appointments is for three reasons. For one reason, because it can be overwhelming and you may not remember everything that the doctor says. There is a lot of information, and it's very important for somebody else to be a second ear. The second reason is because, when you're feeling shitty, maybe somebody else can turn around and be like, hey, it's fine, let's listen to music and whatever, let's think
Yeah.
about something. And third thing is that, you make them, you also make your loved ones understand your process and be a part of it. When we withdraw and we go through it by ourselves, it's also, we're kind of digging ourselves into a deeper hole, because it's so overwhelming that it feels impossible to do alone.
Mm.
So it's really important to find the people that will support you. And this may not be necessarily your family, but it could be your friends, it could be other survivors. I
Yeah.
had somebody reach out to me on through my Instagram account, to support in a particular way. They felt like, their support system was not understanding them, and I get that. I mean, I was very lucky that towards the end of my chemo, one of my companions on almost every chemo session was another survivor, and that was
Yeah.
a beautiful experience for me.
Luz, do you think that you've actually experienced depression? And if you do, was it because of cancer?
I have had my experiences with depression even in the past, before my diagnosis, before anything. When I was much younger, in my teenage years, I had an experience with depression. So I know that, I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to be there. And I did not. I don't think I was. I don't think I reached that point. I think I actually, in the process that I'm currently going through, I think I stopped myself by like this much before I could go into a bad state. I think, and that comes, I think, with maturity, and with also with getting to know yourself.
And
I,
accepting the situation, I think, as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I think that's a part of the journey and of the process. I think, the more you resist against a bad diagnosis or a bad situation, the more you're going to
Suffer
not be able
later.
to cope. Yeah, so you're going to suffer more. For me, I had to, I always use the word surrender. I surrendered myself to the process. I surrendered myself to the doctors. And to me, surrendering doesn't mean giving up. It means the opposite. It just means, this is happening to me for whatever reason that I cannot possibly understand. And I don't want to focus on understanding the reason. But whatever it is, I need to just do whatever is best to allow me to cope with it and to overcome it. So I focused on what was going to be my steps to reconstruction and to rebuilding myself, and to, okay, this is the
Yeah.
work that we do. And I always say that, therapy and mental work is courageous, and I'm proud of myself for taking that step and early on and understanding that that's what I needed.
Yeah.
It's very draining. It's exhausting because I have, you know, I come from a lot of trauma, unfortunately, even from losses. From I lost my brother in my childhood, and you know, the loss of my dad, and the loss of our relationship, and the start of a new life, and what I felt was cancer for me really transformed me. I think with a lot of survivors I have discussed this, and for some of us it may not be that way, but for me, cancer was a transformational experience. It changed who I am in many ways. So in many ways it changed who I am, and in other ways it simply showed me who I was. So I realized that I want to live authentically, and I use therapy to show me what that is, because I don't know yet, and I need to understand myself first before I can do anything, before I can grow. I think my main goal going through therapy was not necessarily to get over cancer, if you will, but it's more, what did it really show me about myself? What were the experiences that I really went through, and the lessons that I took from it, and how can it help me become a better person, a better woman, a better friend, a better everything? This is what I really want to understand, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
You know what, Luz, I'm really, really proud of you and the work you've done on yourself to not just educate yourself and basically go through the process and then actually relive this process while helping others and being connected to the community and making sure all these people have some kind of a voice beyond October. I'm really proud of you. And I feel like not just women, even men, we need to get together and support each other and stuff like that. And I want to have an open invitation to you. If there's anything I can do, or any of my network or any people around me that can support not just awareness, but also females going through tough times, embracing them back into the workforce, doing things differently, really changing the dialogue around survivors and make them more like thrivers like you. And I feel like this is a responsibility of every citizen and resident of this country. This country have given us so much, and I think the people of this country, regardless of their nationality, their background, deserves it. They deserve the love and attention, and they deserve the support. And I'm so happy that you accepted to do this session. And I know we took more longer than we wanted, but honestly, I don't think this is enough. We need to keep the conversation going on how we can really, I always say embracing survivors again into life, because a lot of people have difficulties. Not everyone is happy and bubbly and can actually go to therapy and do this and that. There's so much work to be done. And I think you've started something through your blog and the talks that you're doing. And I will cheer you and support you. And any other women, please keep me posted on your agendas and where you're going next. And I'd love to support you.
Thank you so much. No, I really appreciate also that you're offering your platform to this topic and to women like me who have gone through it. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see where a lot of this work is going to go into. I mean, I've been connected to so many women, and I'm excited to think of ways to help all of us thrive and be better and be healthier, and let's see. But thank you for highlighting my story. I really appreciate it. It's great to talk about mental health. It's great to talk about awareness, and I'm very grateful and humbled by it.
And I know this is your first time, but this won't be the last time on my platform. I'm pretty sure we will be doing things together very soon.
Absolutely. I'll be more than delighted to do that. So thank you so much, Kautar, for having me.
Thank you. Take care, my dear.
Night, you too. Bye.